Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Holy Happy Hour. I'm your host, Josh, and I first wanted to remind you to like and subscribe. We are just kind of crawling towards that 2,500 subscribers, and thank you all to you guys have subscribed already. And if you guys are interested, especially during Lent, is the perfect time is to join our Patreon group. You can actually join for free, and I do daily gospel reflections. We write about the lives of the saints, and I actually have some people coming on soon that are going to be doing some writings as well. They really have that charism of writing, and I think that through their writings that you could encounter Jesus, which is kind of the mission of the whole podcast. And so don't forget to join that. Links are all in the description below. But we're going to jump right into it today. I'm super excited about today's episode. And today I have with me the CEO of Spirit Juice Studios, Rob. And I'm going to let you tell everyone your last name because I was like, I could attempt it. I would say, like, is it Caxmark? Is that close?
That's the common butcher of it.
Yeah.
So you take out the C, so Kaz,
Okay.
so like Jazz, but Kaz.
Gotcha.
But it's
Gotcha.
close. You
Awesome.
were you weren't far away.
So close. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. We'll see how it goes. So my last name's not too bad. It's Thunderbird. But when I say it, people are like, "What did you just say? Thunderbird, Thunderbird, what?" But then when you see it spelled out, it's like, "Oh, I got it, gotcha." So it's not too bad. But that's awesome. Well, yeah, how's it going? How's your Lent going, and how are things going?
Lent's good, man. It's I always say before Lent started, I always made a post. I don't really go on X or on Twitter much, but I was gonna make a post
Hmm.
that said like, "This is the longest Lent I've ever had, and it hasn't even started yet." Because it was like the end of February, and I was like, Easter felt so far away, and it felt
Yeah.
like Lent started just like things were hard. It just feel like this
Hmm.
time of year things get just
Yeah.
hard for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I was like, we didn't even start Ash Wednesday, so
Hmm.
it was good. I added a couple things that intentionally
Hmm.
are challenging, but what
Yeah.
I like about Lent is like you can you can use an opportunity to really like make some changes in your life, and
Hmm.
you can
Yeah.
do it, for good reasons, right? And so
Yeah.
it's good. It hasn't been the easiest, but it's been
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
And I think the harder it is, the more you get to celebrate in the resurrection.
Yeah.
There's been Lent where it's like I didn't really give up too much or do anything, and then Easter
Yeah.
comes, it's like, oh yeah, Easter. But like
Yeah.
if it's a hard Lent, usually a good Easter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had to think about mine this year. I was like, okay, what can I give up? In the past, like when me and my wife first started dating, I was just addicted to TV. I love TV shows. I love movies. I'm a huge sports guy, so there's always something to watch. My wife's always just like, goodness gracious, there's always something you want to watch, and so that was an easy one. Okay, I need to give this up for Lent. A few years back, and then one year it was alcohol. It wasn't necessarily an alcoholic or anything, but kind of that. Actually, just did an episode on gluttony with a guy, and we were talking about how you can have something like not necessarily abusing it in a single sitting, but over time you just don't have control. And I felt like I was Sunday, like young adult groups or something. I was having a beer. Then Taco Tuesday we're doing margaritas, and then Thursday night Bible studies is having a beer, and then Saturday is the game, and so we're having a beer. And it's like I probably need to give this up, but this is the first year I felt like I needed to reflect to see like what do I. There's still multiple things, but what would be the best, like the best for growth? Because yeah, it's all about being uncomfortable, and I think that's the only place we can grow. It's kind of similar to like working out, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and working out's a great because it's like you do it, and for most people, I'm sure there's some people that are glutton for punishment that like working out.
Mhm.
I hate working out. I do
Yeah.
it 5 times a week, but I don't like it. But it's something that it serves like you feel. I heard someone talk about it's like when you work out, you feel weaker, but are actually becoming
Hmm.
stronger. And
Yeah.
so like Lent's kind of like that. You feel like poor in spirits in some of the stuff, and
Hmm.
especially I think I struggle sometimes where I slip up on something I've given up,
Hmm.
and it's like you could kind of beat yourself down, but in one way you look at it like, no, that's good. It shows
Yeah.
your humanity, and you come back to God like, listen, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And then it's that repentant, and so like it's
Yeah.
always being aware of like that struggle that I think you have throughout
Hmm.
it, and when you fail and then stepping back up and doing it, because it's like,
Yeah.
you know I don't know, it's
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
good, it's good
And
for
we
you.
just yeah we just talked to our Bible study yesterday about just kind of the root of prayer, like what prayer is, and it's just like being first of all being humble. It is your relationship with God, but it's so at the root of it has to be humility and how you really got to be able to like one of our focus missionaries always says when he goes to pray, it's like name Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, man. Holy Spirit, teach me to pray. And then he always starts it like that, and we were like kind of talking about that how it's like kind of like Lent, yeah, you do something, you give something up, but then you fall short. and prayer time, Lent. That's what confession's for. It's like the kind of those reminders that like we fall short, but He's giving us this grace. He's giving us this gift, this ability to come back to Him. He wants us to keep coming back to Him. He's never gonna push us away and say like, okay, it's enough's enough. You're not getting it. So yeah, that's beautiful. Um, well, cool. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Spirit Juice Studios and kind of where it started. But first, I actually didn't know. I didn't put two and two together until I was like looking through the site and stuff and the social medias and I was like, oh my gosh, I've actually interacted with you guys before. Not directly, but I was at a conference. I was at a fundraising conference, and it was for Petrus, and you guys had like sponsored a lunch or something. And I don't know if it was you or if it's someone else. It's been a few years, but they came up and they're basically like, hey, if you sign up our newsletter, we'll send you a bag of coffee, and we also have some other gifts we'll give you. And so I brought the coffee is long gone, but that stuff's super great. I got the Venerable Fulton Sheen on there, which is awesome. But I got these and I use them as
Yeah.
bookmarks. And so it's kind of a little bit hard to see. My lights are a little bright, but I'll maybe I'll like put them in on the screen in the editing. But I have these and I use it for bookmarks like still to today. Like I've had them for like 3 years, especially Fulton Sheen and Carlo Acutis, and then which is cool because you guys will have to change the Blessed Carlo Acutis soon, which would be
We
great.
just
Keep the
we
saint.
just updated it. Yeah. The
Yeah,
the state ones are coming.
yeah. So that's odd, but I wanted to point that out just because first of all, I knew they would sit here and I'd forget to mention it. But yeah, take us through like how did that all start? How did Spirit Juice Studios come about? How did you kind of come up with the idea? Or,
So first off, that's a cool connection, and I think that was
yeah.
Matt who was at that Petrus conference.
Okay.
I think it was Matt. I could be wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah.
So I'm a cradle Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and was one of those things where was like most cradle Catholics, and I have an Italian mom, so forced
Mm-hmm.
to go to church and stuff. And then made my confirmation, and she's like, okay, you don't CCD's over, but you gotta do something. You gotta go to like church for the youth group. So I started doing that, and I didn't want to do it at first, but then eventually it started getting funner and funner, and different things
Mm-hmm.
sparked in my faith. And as I'm growing up here in my high school at that point, and I'm seeing things that the world attracts me to, and then
Mm-hmm.
I explore those things, and it's leaving me unfulfilled. And then
Yeah.
seeing the things that are involved in the church that don't look so good on the outside, like a teen chirp retreat. If you're familiar with chirp, Christ Renews His
Mm-hmm.
Parish, teen
Mm-hmm.
chirp. It's the name. I mean, I don't know. Like they should really rebrand that for kids. It sounds terrible. If you describe it, it sounds boring.
Uh-huh.
But you went to that, and it was like I would say life changing, but it was huge. It like left me so fulfilled. It was like a
Yeah.
mountaintop experience, and so it was like I kept having this juxtaposition in my brain where I was like, okay, this stuff looks bad, but it actually is good, and the stuff that looks good is actually bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why doesn't people make the church look better? Because it's got a
Mm-hmm.
better message than what the
Yeah.
world's doing. So I would ask that question to different people, my youth minister, and use the response I gives. Well, I don't know if you could make something better, make it yourself. Then
Mm-hmm.
just kind of brush me off, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I took it to heart, so I started making stuff. And this is
Mm-hmm.
back in the late '90s, early 2000s. So
Mm-hmm.
technology was a lot different back then than it was
Yeah. Yeah.
than it was now. So I just dabbled with stuff, right? And I did it
Mm-hmm.
for things with low stakes for my youth group, for different parishes, eventually, different things in the diocese.
Mm-hmm.
And people started to notice a little bit. So I started doing more stuff. And it's kind of a common thing in ministry. You do something well or decent enough, and people keep asking you to do more. And so
Yeah.
that evolved, kept going back and forth, back and forth. And I was DJing too.
Mm-hmm.
Until someone asked if I would DJ be the host of a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just about to graduate college. My dad was in my head of saying like, okay, you got to get a real job. You can't be doing like all this DJing and whatever
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I don't know, because it was unpaid and I don't know how much time it's going to take. And I was like, all right, well, when you get, the opportunity to host a radio show. So I was like, I said yes to it. And because it was a 30-minute show once a week, and it was Catholic music was the thing.
Oh, nice.
And so I was apprehensive. I was like, what's the name? What's the name of the show? Because they had already kind of like got a little bit of a structure. And like, well, the name's Spirit Juice. I'm like, dang, that's a pretty good name. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I did that. I graduated college, and right when I graduated, I got a normal full-time job. It's actually at IBM now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the radio thing, Spirit Juice. And so then I
Mm-hmm.
got even more connected with different people and doing different stuff, and really got to see at this point, a couple years in, from all the ministry, I was seeing like everything I saw on the parish level was compounded, nationally and globally,
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, the church does not do creative stuff that well.
Yeah.
It used to. It used to make the most beautiful art in the entire world. Some of these cathedrals
Yeah.
and like mind blowing. Like seriously, some of these we're doing a project right now that involves cathedrals, and like I don't even my brain is like it like breaks my brain to think like how do they build this stuff? How do they make the
Yeah.
stained glass stuff? Like
Mhm.
it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So we've fallen, right? We've fallen
Mhm.
so far in the sense of like
Mhm.
creating beauty. So there was an organization that was willing to hire me and do some stuff for them, creating content. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let me try this. Let me go full time with this. I quit
Mhm.
my full time job and just went and started Spirit Juice Studios in
Mhm.
2007,
Yeah.
and didn't know that much. I thought I knew a lot, but I actually didn't know that
Mhm.
much at all. And just
Mhm.
try to teach myself how to create stuff specifically more in video.
Mhm.
And it was a slow process. I mean, right now it's going on. It'll be 18 years coming up in
Oh, wow.
August, but it was a slow process, learning,
Yeah.
failing, learning, failing, step and repeat, working seven
Yeah.
days a week,
Yeah.
nonstop. And so it eventually led us to where we are now, which, we're blessed to make a lot of different awesome content
Yeah.
for Catholics.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking. I think on your site, it mentioned like some of the people you guys have worked with, like the USCCB and Word on Fire and Focus, and I was just like, okay, so every big dog out there in the Catholic world you guys have worked with. That's awesome. Who was that first like you're doing this and you're kind of just doing on the side. You're doing some stuff for your parishes, and who was that first like big person that you're like you got the email or whatever or call and it's like, hey, Bishop Barron wants to do something or someone. Well, who's that big person? The first one that kind of gave you that sign. It's like, oh wow, I made it.
I mean, the Bishop Barron one was pretty big. That one, the funny
Yeah.
thing is that I got invited to talk. I've become even as I've gotten older, very I'm not afraid to share my opinion of things.
Oh
And so I
yeah.
was asked to give a talk it's like a Catholic new media conference, and it was like Catholics on YouTube was a theme.
Hmm.
And so I basically went and talked about like the top Catholics on YouTube.
Hmm.
And when it came time, and I prefaced the whole thing. I said, listen, if you're in my family and we were eating a meal together and you had some food in your teeth, I would tell you got food in your teeth. I'm not going to not tell you got food in your teeth because
Yeah.
later you'll be like, what the heck? I had this on my face or whatever, and you didn't tell me. So it's like, I'm saying this out of love. And I went through like all the different top YouTubers in at the time and basically said like everything they're not doing right.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
EWTN was one of them.
Yeah.
Word of Fire was one of them.
And
Although
is
I
this
would,
mainly from like you were watching it and it's like, ah man, this video could be done so much better, or was it? It wasn't from like the Catholic teaching standpoint, right? It was more from the
yeah,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
talking about like I mean Catholic teaching that's
Yeah.
usually for the most part most of the people are doing a decent job of that.
Yeah. Yeah. They're usually
This
good
was for
there.
more visual thing,
Yeah.
and so Father Steve, who is the CEO of Word on Fire and still is, was in the
Hmm.
audience because I mean it was a public event. He was in Dallas or whatever, and so I gave the talk whatever, and then I come back and then I get a call from Father Steve, who's the CEO for Word on Fire, and he offered a project. And he's like, if you had the guts to stand up and say all that in front of a bunch of people, let me see what you can do with some real money in a real project. And it was
Yeah.
our first big project we did with Bishop Barron. And so that was like, you never really feel like you make it, but
Yeah.
that was a point where it's like, okay, this is different. This is
Yeah.
not, it just felt very different. And I remember even
Hmm.
being on set because it was a really huge set. And I remember talking to the whole crew. I was like, listen, guys, because we probably had like 20 people on set. I was like, I am just so grateful to be here. I don't know everything I'm doing. So if I'm doing something not right, please tell me. And,
Uh,
yeah, it was a humbling and a great learning experience and
yeah.
very nerve wracking, but it
Yeah.
was cool. It was
That's
just like,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool, and yeah, I can imagine the nerves going into that, but probably also on the same side of balance with like excitement of like, oh, this could be awesome, like this would be so cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it paid off. That's great. That's when I started this YouTube channel, it's kind of the exact same way. I was like, I'm just gonna start. I'm just gonna do it because like you're gonna have to learn and get better and stuff. And now ever since then, we've now added like a 4K camera and lights and actually set up a place so where everything's consistent and you just learn. But yeah, I started noticing some of the stuff you were just saying too. I just became Catholic like 6 years ago. People actually say, "Man, you became Catholic and jumped off the deep end," because I sold my business. I started working for the church, the development director at the University Parish here in Tulsa, and I started a Catholic podcast, and I lead Bible studies, all that stuff. They're like, "Man, you jumped off the deep end." But I came from the Protestant world, and they always say there's two things that Protestants do really, really well: is they get people plugged into Bible studies, and they market really well. Like that's something
Mhm.
that like the Catholic Church could take from the Protestant world. And coming from the like Life Church world, I remember thinking that same thing. I'm like, man, our website could be better. Like we've got videos being done, like played at some of the biggest fundraising events. We're just kind of like, man, that's a little rough. Like that doesn't look the best. But I think Tulsa's caught on. Like they've started hiring out jobs and stuff like that. I think they're starting to see the benefit. And we just recently hired someone for our last fundraiser dinner, and they came to a professional video, literally 60 seconds, and we used it for a promo video for this past year, and our numbers doubled just by having a good promo video and like being able to actually portray the beauty of the events, which was great.
That's awesome. Was that Manny? That because I know Manny lives out there. Marquez.
So someone just told me Manny. There was a guy named Manny that I need to have on the show, and he's like with Word on Fire, I believe. But no, it wasn't Manny. There's a guy named Daniel McKay, which I always
Okay.
throw out the random Daniel McKay. He'll work for this podcast one day. But he is works for the diocese. He's a young guy, probably married for 5 years. They have a beautiful daughter, and he works for the chancery, and so he does all
Hmm.
their videos and stuff. And so, but I think Manny might have done the Cooking Up Compassion project. I think, but that one was super cool. They actually flew a drone through the entire Cooking Up Compassion or the entire Catholic Charities campus, and the video was just awesome. It was so cool. But no, I haven't got to meet Manny yet.
Manny's great. Yeah, we worked on a film with him. So yeah, he does work. He also does work for Word on Fire. He's a lot of time he's been the one that will when Bishop goes to do the what is it when like they're in Rome for like a month. So he'll like go out there and like like live with the bishop
Yeah,
for
like the
like for that. He's done a
yeah
bunch of
some
that. He's done
bishop
it.
conference. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But no, Manny's good. He did a film recently called "Make Peace or Die," and I was one of the producers on that with him. It was, and I mean, the story's incredible. Basically, so his brother, Marine, his whole, now I'm just blanking on the name, like unit was
hmm
all killed except for Anthony, and
mm,
so a very traumatic story with that. But then Anthony like started carving these it's like the boots with like the gun coming out and the helmet on top.
yeah,
Started
yeah.
carving it out of wood and then delivering it to each of the families.
Oh wow,
And then they made a film on it and yeah, it went on PBS and a whole bunch of different stuff. But man, he's
yeah,
great, super
yeah,
talented, super Catholic.
yeah.
So yeah, you should definitely have him on the
That's awesome.
podcast or just be
Yeah,
connected with him because he's local and he's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome because I think that would be the next step for us here at the Holy Happy Hour is just to add like someone to make it more visually appealing and more I don't know, just more like take it up a notch. Like I don't think I
Hmm.
necessarily do a bad job for my skill set, which is not much. But taking it to that next level and yeah, I think it's a great way. I got really honored to I invited Trent Horn on the show, and
Oh,
this is
nice.
back. I didn't hold back. I don't hold back. I'm kind of like you in a sense. I'll talk to anybody. I'll ask anybody. Maybe not quite more like the controversial side, but I'll go walk up to anybody and talk to them. And so I wasn't afraid to just invite everybody on the show, even though I had like 800 subscribers at the time. I was like, I'm going to invite Trent Horn, and I just
Hmm.
sent him an email. He said he couldn't do it. He's too busy, obviously, but he said I want to jump on the phone with you though. And he called me and was just like, basically saying like, just keep getting better and better each day. Keep focusing your what you're skilled at, and then get people to partner with you to do the other things to make it better. Because the better, the more professional is, the more people you'll reach. And we need people on the internet. We need missionaries here in a world where most people are like, just get off social media. Like everyone just get off. We need to remember not to abandon social media because it is like a mission field. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful like 5 to 7 minute conversation, which was super awesome. But yeah, but that'll be cool to get in touch with Manny, kind of see what he's up to. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I think trusting two things. I said that I think trusting people and letting go of like if someone can do something better than you can, letting them do it. That was a big
Yeah.
thing I had to learn. And so just in the sense, I think your setup looks good, but certainly someone like Manny could come in and even just
Hmm.
improve it in that way. But to
Yeah.
what Trent was saying, Yeah, I mean, I say that all the time, where it's like, if we're not like, I say Catholics aren't taking this seriously. They're not taking media and
Mhm.
stuff seriously. You know,
Yeah.
our God is to like pull back, get off social media, and like that'd be fine if that was an actual response that will work. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly it might work interiorly, and some people probably do need to just get off or reduce their social media. But we really, as Catholics and as a whole, need to be creating more content for social media.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that goes to a certain end, and you know the internet flooded with Catholic content, and all Catholics
Mhm.
are spending too much time on the internet. Okay, but
Mhm.
that's not anywhere close to where we're at. Where the
Yeah.
realities we're at
Yeah.
is like there is very little Catholic and good Catholic content online,
Mhm.
and most of it is outdated. Like there's very
Yeah.
few people that are really doing things at a cutting edge that's going to break through and reach people. And there
Yeah.
is such a huge opportunity to do that. I mean, you just mentioned about how with their diocese they had a better looking commercials and doubled their donations. That
Yeah.
works for like everything. You know, you could
Yeah.
double your people coming to church if you have something that really catches their eye and speaking that language. And I
Mhm.
think that's hard. I think that it's intimidating. Is every platform really is a different language. You
Yeah.
know, in the sense of like how do you create content that does well on Instagram is different than how you create content that does well on YouTube
Mhm.
or on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or on TikTok. And so, you know, I would encourage people if you're listening out there and you feel like inspired, pick a single platform and try to do well on that
Mhm.
single platform. Don't try
Yeah.
to do everything. You know, like I've been listening a lot to Gary Vee again. I listen to a lot, and I
Yeah.
go up
Yeah.
and down. You know, everyone loves
Yeah.
Gary
Yeah.
Vee,
Yeah.
but he's like, you know, post like, you know, 1,000 pieces of content on every platform every day. And
Mhm.
like that can feel overwhelming and not
Yeah.
doable. And
Mhm.
so it's like, just pick one and do
Mhm.
that one well. And then from there, expand out. And I think, you
Yeah.
know, you'll see the fruit of it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And something you said, I picked up this Blessed Carlo Acutis card again because Carlo, I loved that the last sentence on here, or two sentences, says Carlo could not understand why stadiums were full of people and churches were empty. He would repeatedly say, they have to see, they have to understand. And that just reminded me of like, yeah, and that's what social media can do is we can do awesome videos of the mass. And so we can show people the beauty of the faith through social media, or we can have people that maybe there's people that are like super into like apologetics and Thomas Aquinas, and they would be great to have something similar to like a Catholic Answers, and they can spread more of the truth of it. And like what we are here at the Holy Happy Hours, we want to bring in support so that we can do good in the community. We want to be able to give back. So when people support, we pour the money back into either partnering with Catholic charities or partnering with just people that have skills so that we can do something for people in need within the community. And I think that lines up perfectly with what the church tells us is like, I mean, what the church is like truth, goodness, and beauty. And yeah, I think that's awesome. But I thought of that when you were talking. I thought of that sentence on that card. It's just awesome. And Carlo Acutis is kind of the leader of all that because he was like early on. When did he die? Like early 2000s. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 2006, and so he was building websites and Eucharistic, like miracle exhibits that still go around today, and super cool to see. But yeah, I think people don't need to abandon social media, but I also don't think everyone's going to be called there. So yeah, if you're out there and you're like, well, I don't really like social media, I don't like doing this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, then maybe you are more of like a find what you are passionate about, but you still can take the same approach to like you want to lead a Bible study. It's actually a great example is kind of does the same thing. You start it, and maybe it's not going to be the best, most knowledgeable Bible study at first, but just say yes to God and then trust Him, and then just continue try to get better and better. How can I prepare more? How can I help others understand the Scriptures more? Or what should I study in what order to understand the Bible as a whole? Um, that's been another thing for me that kind of went along right with what you said.
Yeah. Well, to what you're saying too, in regards to, you know, not everyone's called to create content on social, but I think you got to listen to where your desires, your talents are naturally. And some people
Hmm.
have natural talents in other areas. Other people, if you find yourself on social media a lot, you might be called to make stuff for social media because that's the
Yeah.
first. I wouldn't suggest anyone making content for social media that doesn't spend a good amount of time on there. So you're not going to know how
Hmm.
to create stuff, and you're going to create stuff in like speaking in the wrong tone or voice. And so you got
Hmm.
to be, as was it Pope Francis, like smell like the sheep or the sheep
Hmm.
or the flock or
Um, Yeah, I
smell
can't.
of the flock, something. So
Something like that. Yeah.
you gotta get it. And so if you're spending time on there, it's like, okay, start to dabble in that and
Hmm.
be okay at like anything, whatever you're doing. Like be okay doing it poorly. Just like if you know don't know how
Hmm.
to lead a Bible study, that's okay. Do it
Yeah.
bad first, and then you'll
Yeah.
eventually like that's the only way. I was listening to like this Jocko thing earlier about like how do you work out regularly? He goes, work out regularly. He goes, how do you get
Yeah.
up early in the morning?
Yeah.
Consistently. Get up early in the morning consistently. Like you just
Hmm.
do it. Doing it gets you
Yeah.
better. There's no shortcut to getting better at
Hmm.
anything. Anything.
Yeah.
We all want shortcuts. We all want these hacks. And the truth is, like, it's mostly snake oil. There's very,
Yeah.
very few things that will give you a shortcut to stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I know when the company first started, I prayed for someone to come in with a lot of money to make my life easier because it was it was a hard struggle for the first 5 years. It was
Hmm.
like just little to no money, and it's like if someone could just come in with a lot of money, then it could be create this stuff for God and just make it easier.
Hmm.
I'm so glad that didn't happen, hindsight, because learning how to do things well and succeeding on my own gave me the grit and the knowledge to do it on a larger scale. And it's like what you
Hmm.
know the parable where it's like the person gives him like the small money and like he comes
Hmm.
back and what do they do with it? And the person that just didn't do anything got there's like well,
Yeah.
why'd you do
The
that? And the person that like grew it and that's our talents and God like
yeah.
grow your talents and do it slowly because you're not just going to be given anything else for free. Like you have
Hmm.
to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was reminded of I don't know if I would be able to find it fast enough, but in First Corinthians, I mean, Paul's a good example of all that too. Like Paul tells them in the beginning of the letter to the Corinthians that like I didn't come to you of great knowledge, but just of faith. And he just said yes to Jesus and went forward. And this guy had every right to believe that he was not the person to be like an apostle and like leading and directing people on how to be good Christians. He had persecuted so many of them, but yeah, but he just said yes, and he started. I'm sure he also failed at times, and actually, I think him and Peter had some little debates and little fights and stuff every now and then. But yeah, that's a great point right there. Um, yeah, and I think social media can also be a way of like proclaiming the gospel too. It's like we're all on social media just because like you don't necessarily need to be like shooting to be like the next Pints of Aquinas or something, but if you're on social media, not being afraid to be like unapologetically Catholic, posting
Hmm.
about when you go to mass, and so a great way to evangelize. Had a girl on the show one time where we talked about workplace evangelization, and she said it's really easy. I just tell people I'm heading to mass, and then I'm gonna go to lunch and ask them if they want to go, and they'll sometimes say I'll meet you after for lunch, or they'll say no, we're good, but she just throws it out there, and so maybe that's where you're at, like where it's like you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you might as well like be Catholic on it. Like don't feel like you need to hide it. Because I feel like some people feel like I'm not gonna get out there. I'm not gonna put myself out there too much. It's like, especially an older generation at our church. I'm not gonna put myself out there too much because I'm not really the smartest person. I don't know. I'll leave that to you younger guys that love apologetics. But yeah, they don't jump out there and proclaim their faith, even though there honestly would be just fine. Like get out there and someone may make you look like a fool once, but then you learn from it and you grow in your faith and learn how to respond to things. And yeah, so even if it's not social media, this stuff's going to happen to you.
Yeah, well, totally. And I think, I mean, myself too, like sometimes I'm afraid to engage in apologetics because I don't know if I'm going to say the right thing,
Hmm.
you know, and we don't want it's like we don't want to misrepresent the faith. But I think there's
Yeah.
grace in that. And there's also just like, God rejoices when at least try, even
Yeah.
if we like may say the wrong thing. It's like, well, we're trying. And
Yeah.
to what you said, like, well, we're going to learn and we'll look it up. And you know, you
Hmm.
can always couch things with like, I believe the church talk says this, you know,
Hmm.
and sometimes honestly, it's gonna be better received coming off like that than coming off like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the truth, and
Hmm.
I'm telling you right now because people don't like that, you know, like
Yeah.
coming if you come with arrogance, but if you come with humility, and it's like, hey, I believe the church says this for this reason, and I can see where you're coming from over there, but you know, it really like there's more, you know, whatever the topic is. I mean, I see, um, fortunately or unfortunately, so
Hmm.
you know, I have quite a few tattoos, so I get tattooed pretty
Hmm.
regularly.
Yeah.
And if you ever gotten tattooed, the tattoo shops get, you know, some of them can get quite lively. And I'm
Hmm.
usually there. The one in particular, I love them. Both of the places are great.
Uh-huh.
I'm usually there for like 8 hours because it's like just these long sessions,
Yeah.
and the debates typically ensue. And so, like, while I'm getting like my back blasted or whatever it is, I jump in, and
Mhm.
some of the people are religious, some of them aren't, and they'll start talking about something, and I'll, at this point, I don't feel afraid to just jump in and be like, well, X,
Yeah.
Y, Z and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think if you enter in these conversations in a way of, a bit of curiosity, like not feeling like you're
Mhm.
like, I know all the truth that I'm going to tell to you right now, and you're going to listen, but more like, let
Yeah.
me hear what you're saying too, because your view, like, you're a child of God, just like I'm a child of God. Let me
Yeah.
hear what you're saying. Perhaps if I understand a little bit more where your perspective is, I might be able to when I tell you like the Catholic teaching of it, if I know your perspective better, I could probably say it in a way that you're going to receive it. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you may not say 100% of the truth. You might say, 80% of it, because if you say all of it right away, they're going to like just tune off. And so, like, well, here's one
Yeah.
part of it, and then when they're ready, you could give the other part of it. And it's a lot of
Yeah.
it's just building relationships too. Like,
Yeah.
saying this to a stranger oftentimes is
Yeah.
not the most well received. But if you build a relationship and they have a trust in you, and in how they know you, you
Mhm.
know, um, I mean, that's really how our faith is truly evangelized, is through those
Yeah.
relationships like that.
Yeah, yeah, evangelization is definitely built out of relationships, and I think one thing I always had to get in my head too is understanding you're not most likely you're not going to convince this person, Protestant, atheist, whatever, to become Catholic in that sitting, like in that exchange in that 1 hour. It's going to take time, and we just actually had
Hmm.
a guy get hired as the new director of faith and formation at the cathedral here in Tulsa, but he was a Presbyterian pastor on campus at TU for like 5 years, 7 years, something like that, like a long time, and he was having these conversations with our catechist, for 3 years, and for the past in the last year before he finally decided to become Catholic, the guy finally had to tell him, like, at this point, what'd he say? "Delayed obedience is disobedience," and he
Mm.
finally made the jump, and the diocese just really took care of him and helped him get his new role and stuff, but, um I kind of maybe went off on a rail there because I don't remember what point I was trying to make, but yeah,
That's right.
yeah, it's yeah, because it comes out of relationships. But the reason he is now Catholic is because that catechist was friends with him for years and years, and they just kept the conversation going. And I think that the worst thing we can do is, and you see it all the time on social media with like debates with Protestants and Catholics, or atheists and Protestants, or atheists and Catholics, whatever it is, and they disagree, and it gets really hostile really fast. And all of a sudden, if you're watching it, if it ever gets hostile, you can just go check out a new video because it's like that's not worth watching. But if it ever gets hostile, it's kind of like you're both people are just building up a wall and no one's listening to anybody and it's not fruitful anymore. But if you like watch someone say like Trent Horn, who was great at it, seeing him and Alex O'Connor, a famous atheist, do a debate, and they have this really great civil discussion. They disagree there on major topics, but they have this great relationship. And Alex actually even called him a really good friend one time.
Mm.
And I was like, that's so cool. So yeah, definitely evangelization comes out of relationships, and we're built. We want those relationships as well, even when you become Catholic, or like if in whatever stage you are, you want those relationships to like to keep building in your faith because I mean Jesus sent the disciples out two by two, and I always tell everyone it's like he could have doubled the amount of space he could have covered if he sent them out one by one, and he could have sent them to 12 places instead of six, but he knew like you're gonna need somebody to come back to, pray with, to vent with, and to get right. And so having that group as well, and so that's what we've kind of built here in Tulsa. It's been beautiful, which it seems like maybe you guys have built as well, like with your team, just building a great team at Spirit Juice Studios and kind of having that same mission in mind. How's the team building process been like since the beginning to where it is now?
It was slow at the beginning. I mean, first 5 years, it was just me, random people
Yeah,
here and there I might bring on for different projects. And then, our first employee was a huge step, then our second. And so right now, our team, we have about 30 employees, like, proper employees, W-2s. And then we have a number of
hmm
uh, regular contractors we work with.
yeah,
But, it's we obviously do Catholic videos and stuff. A
yeah,
lot of the people that work here are Catholic. It's not a requirement. As a for-profit company, we can't
yeah,
mandate that people are Catholic. But the one thing is we talk about our mission all the time. We lead our
hmm
our, our, our meetings with prayer. most recently, we've been able to bring mass back to the office. So we have a chapel built
Oh
in
yeah,
our
yeah,
office,
yeah.
and so that's been really good. Just a variety of things that incorporate our faith, but then on the team building side as well. We spend a lot of time and energy to do different activities between like
Hmm.
within the teams for different stuff, and then as a whole company. Something we did too early on when we have a new employee, that we would all sit down and we'd all have lunch, and we just kind of like ask
Hmm.
a bunch of questions, like a kind of like a first date,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but as the company's grown, and it just became not super feasible.
Hmm.
We started doing these things actually in the same spot that I'm sitting right now. They
Hmm.
sit down. It's kind of like one of those Vogue, those 72 questions by Vogue.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
they'll
Hmm.
sit down and I'll ask a bunch of questions, just really about their whole life and stuff. And then we'll cut a really fun video together. And it's just for us
Hmm.
internally. And then,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
always, I know, two truths and a lie. And so, we get people
yeah, yeah,
engaged on Slack. But,
yeah.
Slack and, things like that. At the end of the year, we have, I'm a big Office fan. So the
Oh,
Office,
nice. Me too.
the Dundies, we
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
Juicies.
Oh,
So the
nice.
Juicies, very much of the Office culture, where it's like it kind of jabs at people, poking
Yeah,
fun at
yeah,
different things.
yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we want to build up, because when you're working with people and you're working with the faith, there's a lot of spiritual attacks. There's just a lot of just hard
Mm,
times to go through,
yeah,
and so being able to have people like I try to be careful. I don't want to say this is a family here, because I think it's there's a distinction. Your family
yeah,
is your
yeah.
family,
Hmm.
but we'd like to think this is a really good workplace that you can count on the person next to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Your brother or sister in arms that you're going to go to battle with, that you're going to work hard with,
Hmm.
because there are some late nights, there are some long hours, whether you're on set or you're back at the office. And so
Yeah.
knowing that the person that sits near you has your back,
Hmm.
and we're all doing it for the same mission, to promote
Yeah,
the gospel
yeah,
online.
yeah. Absolutely. That actually brought up something that came up last night as well. We are doing a Bible study on prayer, and um, we talked about how early in building your prayer life, the good, it seems like it's a little uncomfortable. It's kind of has a bite to it, because it's like, if you're new to prayer, like, you're not going to go straight to a holy hour. You're not going to go straight to doing daily mass every single week, because that could be super uncomfortable, and it becomes very taxing on you, and you probably honestly may be pushed away from doing it. Like, "Ah, I just can't do this. This isn't for me." Um, and then the enemy will provide all sorts of worldly pleasures that will distract you from it, and it's easy. Like, that side, this side's easy. So in the early going, it's, you got to kind of take the hard path to get to your prayer life building, and then when your prayer life builds to a certain level, it actually flips, because you get so into your prayer life and at such a great level of it. Now that path is seems easy. You're drawn to mass, you're drawn to adoration, you have a great routine going. So then the enemy will start biting at you, like biting, making things uncomfortable, throwing roadblocks in your way. And you see it with people like St. Padre Pio, who like literally had physical fights with the devil, or demons. And so yeah, so I can imagine there's probably times. I think Trent Horn even posted recently. It's like, I think I'm honestly being spiritually attacked through technology. I had a camera go down, and my last interview I did, the sound didn't work the whole time, so we had to scrap the whole video. And I was like, oh wow, that is crazy. That makes sense that he would attack people like you guys that are really making a difference.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the spirit. The thing is, I'm a huge believer. I think spiritual warfare is a real thing. Something though that I got to be careful with, because I fell into this earlier, or where I was like just convinced that like the devil was just attacking me from every single angle. And I
Hmm.
was talking to a priest, and he had said, just remember, don't give the devil more credit than he actually deserves.
Yeah,
And some of the stuff is just like, because I think I was talking about all the things that were happening, and he probably looked at it and was like, okay, yeah, that's some of that spiritual warfare, but some of that's just normal things, like life's
yeah,
hard and things
yeah,
break and things
yeah,
don't work.
yeah,
And so I'm always careful to not give the devil more credit than he actually deserves
yeah.
in that. And
That's a good
so,
point.
not feeling like, woe is me, God, why are you allowing us all this to happen? It's like, no, it rains on the just and the unjust.
Hmm.
And God doesn't love me anymore because I'm doing Catholic media versus someone that's doing secular media. He loves us all. It's
Hmm.
all the same. He may rejoice that we're creating great stuff, and you rejoice in what the work you're doing, but his love doesn't change.
Yeah.
And that was also a hard lesson for me too, because I thought, like, since I'm doing this, I should have special, It's like you're doing a favor for something. Like, God, I'm doing a favor for you. I'm making this great
Yeah,
stuff for you. Can you at least throw me a
yeah,
bone? It's like,
yeah.
no, this is, yes, it will be hard. Just it'll be hard for everyone. But that you're not doing it to get special favors. You're doing it because I'm doing this because I love God and I love Jesus.
Hmm.
And this is my I love God so much that I want to give back, and I'm
Yeah,
not expecting anything in return from it.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually hear people say the saints are a great example of like the more you actually follow Jesus. I think sometimes they're what is it, the prosperity gospel type thing. It's like as long as you believe and you do these things, like things will be amazing and great. Evil will stay away from you, and it's like almost the opposite. It's like no, the more you actually grow in your spiritual life, the enemy's going to attack you because he doesn't want you making a huge difference. And I don't know why what popped in my head, and I had to throw it in there because I'm a huge Office fan too. But it like reminds me of like Dwight's like really trying to help Ryan become a good salesman. He takes him through all those trials and
Yeah.
stuff, and he's like building him up to help him. And things just don't sometimes just don't go the way you think there, but there's always a greater purpose for it. And I just love how Ryan is. And I can't remember if that happens before he becomes like the big guy at corporate or whatever, but he like
Yeah.
goes through all that stuff. Then they go to the sale, and then Dwight's throwing all the great content at him, and he just fails. It's like sometimes you just fail, and so that is a great point though. It's like not giving the devil too much credit. Like we don't want to give him the acknowledgement of him being. I mean, he is smart and cunning, but yeah, like not let's not blow his ego up or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it would just like
He's like, oh, I'm doing so good. Look, I didn't even do that. They
yeah.
think I did it.
Yeah, it's so wild. Uh, okay, so another thing I want to ask you about is I saw, and I don't know if it's come out yet because I was just scrolling through and enjoying everything, so I forgot to look. I was looking at dates, but the was it Father O Flanagan or Father Flanagan?
Hmm.
Is that a
Yeah,
new
Father Flanagan.
documentary coming out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we
Gotcha.
had a theatrical run of it, and now it's we just put it at streaming on Amazon, and
Awesome.
hopefully we'll be on a few other streaming platforms coming up. So
Okay,
uh,
gotcha.
yeah, that was a wild ride. That was
Well,
a
yeah.
wild ride.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think that was the post I saw where you had kind of explained like I started this up. It was just me, and now I'm signing a contract to do a documentary. I'm like, that's awesome. That's such a cool just like story. What? So who is Father Flanagan? I was telling someone I was like, yeah, like this guy name is Rob. He's gonna be on the show. We're recording tomorrow night, and yeah, he's doing this documentary called about Father Flanagan. They're like, who's that? I'm like, I don't know. I'll ask. And so tell us a little bit about him, and we'll include links and stuff to the Father
Cool.
Flanagan stuff in the description.
So Father Flanagan, he was the founder of Boys Town. So Boys Town, if anyone in the older side of your audience might
Hmm.
know, there was a movie called Boys Town that came out
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
40s.
Hmm.
Spencer Tracy, who played Father Flanagan in the film, it was like kind of the first like Catholics in Hollywood sort of film, and he won an Oscar for his portrayal of Father
Oh.
Flanagan in the film. But
Hmm.
the whole like idea of what it was and all that, it was a Father Flanagan saw at the time a lot of homeless boys on the street, and at the time they were just it feels kind of crazy nowadays to be like homeless kids on the street, like that's just
Yeah,
not a thing. But
yeah.
back then, in the 30s and 40s, it was a thing, and he
Hmm.
took them off the street and gave them a home. But not only did he give them just a home and a place to live, but he really brought them as strong men. And his
Hmm.
at the time it was very counterculture in a lot of stuff because what was made popular or known as the Jim Crow laws. So you couldn't have
Hmm.
people of the same race, religion, or creed all in the same building. Everything had to kind of be separated out.
Yeah, yeah.
And he kept them all together and raised them. And so he got kicked out of Omaha for that because there was laws that said you can't have all these boys in the same building. And so he went to the middle of a cornfield and started
Hmm.
his own town. So that's why Boys Town's
A
a
Boys Town.
town because he
Huh.
created in his own zip code. It's not a huge town, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a town. And so
Wow.
he always saw the need for where kids were at and did that. But I mean, as a Catholic priest, he did that not just to take care of them physically, but also spiritually. He called them
Yeah,
to be saints. And
yeah,
so it's a remarkable story. We kind of tell the
yeah.
story of his life. He started Boys Town, but then he also went across the globe, especially post World War II,
Hmm.
for different peace. Because the children of war is a real thing. Like in devastated areas, these children
Yeah,
have nowhere to go, and if left uncared for, oftentimes they can go in really bad paths, as he saw at
yeah.
the beginning of his sort of career.
Yeah.
So the film was great. I mean, it was a documentary, and we were privileged to have Jonathan Rumi, who plays.
Yeah. Saw that.
He's the narrator on the project, but people know him from The Chosen,
Hmm.
and so it was really cool. I mean, that was going, I guess, to a moment of like, did I make it? When so I flew out to Tennessee to it only took a day for him, really just a couple
Hmm.
hours for him to
Yeah. Yeah.
do the voiceover. But I remember sitting in the recording studio waiting for him to come and be like, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I get to like, I'm like, I'm gonna be directing Jonathan. Like, I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
him like how to. It was like, dude, this is wild, man. This is
Yeah.
so wild. So that
Yeah.
was a cool moment. That was a really
Yeah, I
cool
can't
moment.
imagine like cutting and then just be like, "All right, Jonathan, that was great, but like you need to do this." Him just probably looking at you and be like, "Okay, sounds good." Like, I could see
Yeah,
him just
no, that's how it was.
and
It was
like, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It's like let's say it again, but this time say it like this. And he's like, "Okay, yeah, sounds good." Okay, and it's like
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's cool. I feel like Jonathan Rumi would be a safe one. You know, they say don't ever like meet the celebrities that you look up to.
Hmm.
I feel like he'd be a safe one though to be like, "Hey, if you ever see him though, that's cool. Like just go for it." For me, like
Yeah.
Matt Fradd's always been someone I just really look up to. I think we come from very similar backgrounds and same struggles, and then I think God kind of really gave us similar skill sets and stuff with the podcasting and talking and everything. No, I'm not gonna say I'm at Matt Fradd's level because he's kind of on a different level, but I went to Seek 24, and I'm sitting there and I'm in an elevator and I just hear someone say, "Oh, hold it," and I'm just like, "Okay," and I held it, and then he just comes in the elevator and just stands there and just he's like, "Will you press 14 or whatever number it was?" Just like press it and just like, you know what? I've seen people they're just like stopping him. Can I get a picture? Oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. I'm not just gonna play it cool. And he was like, "You here for Seek?" I'm like, "Yeah." So for first time I've been before. I'm super excited. And just played it cool, and he got off the elevator. I'm like, I should have got a picture. Dang it. but one day. But that's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It can be hard to meet your heroes,
Yeah.
but I think most of the people in the Catholic space are really really good. Jonathan is definitely one of
Hmm.
them, where it's like just
Yeah.
very very genuine, and I think that's
Yeah.
because that's the hard part. It's like you meet someone that you look up to, especially on the faith side of things. I've only been disappointed a couple times, just a
Hmm.
very few small amount, which is normal. I mean, people are humans, and also
Yeah.
like you got to remember too, people are people,
Yeah.
and like you could catch the nicest person on a bad day,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that's just part of it too.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's cool when you get to see people that you've
Hmm.
follow, whether it's online on the internet or on TV or in
Yeah.
the movies, and see them in real life. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty
Yeah, it's
awesome.
it's pretty cool. I had a focus missionary from TU, and he went to focus, and they gave out the jobs, and they said, Ignacio, we didn't assign you anything because you got to go to the airport, pick up Father Mike Schmidt, and your job is Father Mike. Like get him to where he needs to go. It's the hardest job because you gotta get him through the crowds, and so he just told this beautiful story of like Father Mike, like he would literally like basically hook his arms, like, come on, Father, we got to go to the stage, and would be walking him, and people just stop and like, can we take a picture? Like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you, and like celebrity status. Super cool to see that I've never met him, I don't know him, so but it seems like he stays super humble and everything. This story alone, though, like I'm like, man, like I just really look up to this guy. But Ignacio's getting him, and then they're stopping, and he stops and says hi to everyone, like tries to high five everyone, and just like make sure he's being a pastor. Like he's such a well known pastor, and he's doing exactly that. And then Ignacio finally had to tell him though. He's like, "Hey, Father, we're 5 minutes late already. We got to get to the stage." He goes, "Ignacio, let's go. Let's do it." And he's taking him in. And at this point, Father's like, "Sorry guys, I gotta go. I gotta go. Like stop me next time. Sorry, sorry." And he's just taking him. And then Ignacio says, all of a sudden, I feel his arm slip out of my hand, and I turn back. I'm like, "Where'd he go?" And he parted way, and like he sees him walking through the crowd, and Ignacio's like, "Dang it, where's he going?" And so Ignacio makes his way through and like says, "Come on, Father, we gotta go." And he goes, "Hold on, hey guys, how's Seek going?" And he's talking to his two girls, and they're wearing University of Minnesota Duluth shirts. And Ignacio said that they were freshmen at Seek for the first time, a little overwhelmed by the conference is so big and everything. And Father Mike like had to be on stage, was already late, but was like, no, this is my job. Like this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm especially these two girls. Out of everyone, I'm these two girls pastor. And he literally was like, no, they can wait. And he went and checked on them because he could tell that they were overwhelmed. And I'm like, that is so beautiful. Like that's so awesome. That seems very Father Mike of him to just go out of his way to do that. Just wild.
Yeah, that Father Mike's great. He's great, and it's like it's it's moments like that and it's times like that where you look at people and you're like, okay, it's good that you have the spotlight you do because
Yeah.
you're living it authentically, and you know how you are on camera or on stage
Mhm.
is you're even better in real life. And I think that's what
Yeah.
the hope is, you know, because
Yeah.
oftentimes like with celebrities, you know, I always growing up was a huge Jim Carrey fan.
Nice.
Never
Yeah.
met him or anything, but I've heard,
Yeah.
you know, I guess I've heard just different things where it's like, you
Mhm.
know, actually he's not that funny when, you know, or like not that night, or I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
He might be perfectly good. I have maybe one day I can meet him, but like, it's just that like, the higher you go, I think the lower you need to go in how you approach things and stuff, because it's like,
Yeah.
you know, people view you on a or view these celebrities or whatever they call in the Catholic space or not, and these
Mhm.
pedestals, and it's like um, it's so important that like to come and be still connect on a human level, especially as a priest, you know, on a pastoral
Mhm.
level too, and seeing those
Yeah.
things. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think we get the great reminders, like in the parables where Jesus does some big miracle, and then he goes off to pray, and the disciples come and find him. It's like the crowds are looking for you, like they want to like talk to you, or they want to see you, or whatever. And he's like, "Let us go to the next town." And I'm just like, "That's so awesome!" Like he it's such a great example of keeping his eyes on the mission. And I know it's something for this podcast. I when I very first wanted to start it, I met with my priest who we do a lot of stuff with, and I was just asked him if I could talk to him about it, and told him the idea. And he's like, "I think it sounds great. I think you'd do awesome at it." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm not doing it for myself, though. Like, I don't want to do it just because I want to be the next Matt Fradd and I want to be the next speaker at Seek, or I want to get millions of views, millions of subscribers. I want to make sure I'm not doing it for that." And he said, "Pray for it to fail." And I was like, "That's weird." And he's like, "Yeah, pray for it to fail and just tell God, like, if this isn't meant to be, or if this is leading me down a wrong path, like, please let it fail. Please let the views not come, the subscribers not come, the like, no one get anything out of this. Like, just let it not not succeed." And I thought that was the greatest advice and the hardest advice to take at the same time. And I always like had to put the caveat in there. It's like, but God, if you think it's gonna do great, then bless it. And so, but yeah, it was such a great um, uh, advice that I could definitely see someone like Father Mike Schmidt just constantly reminding himself, like, if this is ever not your will for me, like, don't like you can take it all. Like, I can
yeah.
be this Minnesota Duluth University pastor, and that's it, and that's great. Uh,
Yeah, well, it's good
yeah,
advice. I think, you know, and I also like to be reminded that sometimes advice has expiration dates too. I think that
yeah,
advice was
hmm
probably perfect for you then, but I
hmm
also like it's good to give yourself permission to. It's okay to want it to be successful. In the same way, like if
hmm
you um, if you were selling something, let's just say you were selling Catholic books or whatever, your rosaries. If it's making money, that means it's successful. People like it, and so I think it's okay to want to be successful. It's okay to
hmm
want to be able to speak, you know, at Seek or whatever it is. I think it's just always got to be temperance with like, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to serve
yeah,
God, and so like I think sometimes we wrestle as Catholics, as Christians, is like, you know, I have this desire to do this. I want to make a big impact, but I feel bad that I want
hmm
to be so successful. And it's like, it's
yeah,
okay if it's successful. It's good if it is that. And it's okay to really desire that. It just, you can't have that be the sole purpose of it.
yeah, yeah,
And always remember the obedience of it, you know, and it sounds like
hmm
you're doing that perfectly, you know, but
hmm
it's, yeah, I do a lot of times when I'm talking about people to like get on camera and make more stuff, like, well, I don't want to be that like popular or famous. Like, it's
hmm
okay if you are. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with being popular and stuff.
yeah,
It just comes with something else then. And
hmm
I mean, go back to Rumi for a second. I've seen we were chit chatting after at one of the premieres,
hmm
and he said he goes, my cross is celebrity, being a celebrity or something. He said it a little more eloquently than that,
hmm
and I didn't totally get it at the time. And then
yeah,
I started getting like messages because then like we made posts and stuff, and we were like on the
hmm
same post, whatever. And then like people were messaging me. I'll say this, people were messaging some crazy stuff, dude, on
hmm
Instagram, like some crazy stuff. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, now I get it. Like, you know,
hmm
you once you hit the certain like level of like, you get people just throw crazy stuff at you, and it's like you
yeah,
have to like, you know, guard your heart in that
hmm
way and stuff. And so, you know, it again, nothing wrong with getting to that, but it just comes with other things, and
yeah,
knowing, always setting your priority of what you're doing it for, whether you're
hmm
famous or you're not. you're doing it for the Lord, and you're trying to serve God really in all that you do.
Yeah, that is true. It kind of reminds me of the famous Spider-Man quote: "Great power comes great responsibility," and so be kind of the with great popularity comes great responsibility. You got to steward it well.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause it's not a bad thing for a ton of people to know who you are. If so, Bishop Barron would be in trouble. Because people outside of the Catholic Church love Bishop Barron, and yeah, it's just like stewarding it well, and I
Hmm.
think that's why even like podcasts and like you were saying with spiritual studios, it's just like if you keep it rooted in prayer, so that God comes first, make sure you're never letting this get in the way of your family, and then you're doing it to the best of your abilities. Like it can all be successful. You can still have a successful prayer life and a great faith life. Your family can still come first, but then you can also have a successful business, which we need Catholics to have successful businesses, whether you're directly doing ministry or you're in the finance world or you're a lawyer, whatever it is. We need you guys to be successful because we need people to make money so the church can do stuff. So, which that's
Yeah.
my development director coming out of me, my fundraiser coming out of me. But yeah, people talk all the time. It's like, yeah, sometimes I feel bad for how much money I make, but I try to do well with it. I try to make sure I'm donating and stuff. And I'm like, oh, trust me, we need people like you. If I had to go get $100 donation here and $1,000 donation here, it would take me forever to hit my goal. But when I get people that can write $100,000 check, that helps a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to have wealthy Catholics because that means they're could help support stuff. And
yeah,
content is currency these days. So if
yeah,
you have a good following, that's almost more valuable than real money because it allows you to just do so much. And so like we need more, just like we need Catholics that are wealthy and to be able to
hmm,
support things. We need Catholics that have good big followings because
yeah,
small little thing out there. I mean, even during I think it was during Advent, Gwen Stefani, who's Catholic, she
yeah,
was on the
mhm,
Hallow app and doing some stuff. And,
yeah,
I could only imagine, just people and I don't know what she's posting on social, but like
mhm,
incorporating her faith probably reaches a lot more people than even a
yeah,
Bishop Barrett, like,
yeah,
you talk
yeah.
about someone that's like in the celebrity status in Hollywood and in the mainstream thing. It's like,
Yeah,
um, you need people like that because not
yeah,
need, but like having people in that capacity can really impact even more people. So it's
yeah,
it's all
yeah.
good.
And a great example of that is my mom's the biggest Mark Wahlberg fan, loves him,
Mm,
and so she texts us like, "Have you guys seen this new movie? Have you guys seen Father Stew? It's so good." And I was like, "Oh no, we're going to see it. We haven't seen it yet." But she was texting us like, "Go see it. It's so good." And so, yeah, someone that like if it was just some random person, it was a Catholic movie brought to you by Ascension, like it would have never, she would have never seen it. It would have never
yeah.
reached her. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
very
love
cool.
Father Stew. That's what I made a
Me
post on
too.
LinkedIn. I was like, "What's your favorite faith-based movie?" And
Yeah.
mine was Father Stew. It's yeah, and it's I believe it's R, which is
Yeah,
like I think why it's my favorite because it just feels
yeah,
really honest.
yeah,
Not that you have to have an R rating to make it a good movie,
yeah,
but I
mhm,
think when you're creating faith-based content, the more you can, I think, bring it closer to how reality is. I think the more you're going to bring people into the message of it ultimately.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and yeah, and Father Stu is so relatable to everybody. He's yeah, such a great. That movie was really great. I think another great faith based one. I think it was just on Formed. Like we got on Formed. I think it was during Lent last year. Actually, was Fatima. That one was
Mm.
really good. Just that whole story in general is really good. But that yeah, there's so many great faith based movies out there. So if you guys want something great to watch, you jump on Formed, jump on Spirit Juice Studios. You guys see some of that stuff. Father Flanagan. Well, again, we'll include those links and stuff below. But so, if anyone just kind of to wrap up, since we're coming up on time, I guess the first thing first, if anybody was like listening and they're like, I really relate with you guys. Like, I actually feel like I love social media. I would love to get into this eventually. So kind of a two-part question. What would you tell them first, like from a faith standpoint? Like what's a great way they can prepare to be a content creator in their faith life first before they jump onto like whichever social media platform?
I think first I would encourage someone to start to consume find some creators on social media and start consuming their content,
Mhm.
of what does faith-based content look like, what do you resonate with, find what you sort of gravitate, because some people I've seen approach it on the humor side, some people more just like
Mhm.
direct to camera. Find stuff that you resonate with, and they say good artists don't copy, they steal.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
fully actually understand the quote necessarily, but I get the point of it. The point of it is,
Mhm.
find something and replicate that, because you can't actually, even if you try to copy it exactly how they do it, it's still going to look completely different or look
Mhm.
very different. And so
Yeah.
find enough. I know early on, if I'm making like some sort of film, I'll get inspired by something, if
Mhm.
some commercial, some other short film, and I'll use that in my head. I'll keep going back for inspiration. So find your inspiration. Find
Mhm.
someone that you really resonate with. I mean, even this is an inspiration of Pints of Aquinas, right? So you
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
like in your head, you're like, okay, how does he do this? How does he do that?
Mhm.
And so find that creator or creators, and then when you're ready, and you're probably never going to feel ready, but when you
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you execute, try to do what they do. And then eventually you're going to find your own voice. You're going to find your own thing. And ultimately, you're probably going to pick from like three or four different creators that you've seen, and
Yeah.
then your own sort of like natural inclination. And that's going to
Mhm.
be your voice. And really, I
Yeah.
think what you ultimately want to get is your personality out, because we all
Mhm.
have God given us all such unique personalities. And the more you can
Yeah.
bring your personality to the content you're making, the more it's going to resonate with people. And even if it feels very niche, of like, well, there's
Yeah.
not many people that are doing XYZ. That's okay. That's actually the benefit of the internet, because you can go
Yeah.
very niche, and you'd be surprised how many people will resonate with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of the quote you said that they don't copy, they steal, and I was like, yeah, no, I should definitely steal like the format is fine and stuff like that. I just shouldn't do the Australian accent, but that's fine. That maybe take it a little too far. And yeah, and another one I was really in. Well, I wouldn't say inspired by, but I really liked. Like I was like, oh, that's really cool. That'd be a cool concept. I'm a big cigar guy. I love cigars. And so Michael Knowles, when he does his like little like conservative rap. I don't watch it a whole lot, but like when they like it's like him and Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Andrew Clavin, and they're all just like smoking cigars in a studio and just talking. I'm like, that would make for a cool show of like just a bunch of Catholics sitting around smoking cigars and talking about the faith. And I've heard that from some people too. It's like think to yourself, what kind of show would I want to watch? Um, what kind of shows out there? Maybe you're inspired by something, but there's not this yet. And what would I want to watch? And then that's what you make. And I think it was a financial audit guy that did that. He literally takes his financial audits he used to do at work, and now he does it on a YouTube channel. And it was such a cool concept. I'm like, yeah, that is a great idea because you want to love what you do and have a passion for what you do. And so whatever format that is, there's gonna be something out there for everyone, which is great. Now moving past it, so they get there and they feel like they're kind of okay. I kind of understand what I want to do. I would add too is like getting into like a consistent prayer life too. Is making sure that's solid because that'll be the foundation of everything. And then from there, they're like, okay. And I know you said earlier, pick a platform and don't try to post on all of them. Which I hope my wife's watching because she's told me to post on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everywhere. And I was like, I really don't think I have time for that. I think I'm just gonna focus on YouTube. So I was right. I'm just kidding. But aside from it, so they pick their platform. Any other tips or anything? I know a lot of people just say no, just start, like just go.
Yeah, I mean, I always like an imperfect start that you tweak over time. I think a lot of times we get stuck in our head where it's like, oh, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. I'm going to launch with the perfect.
Hmm.
It's okay to launch. Just, I mean, because first off, it's going to be hard for people to, organic is almost, I wouldn't say it's dead, but it's really hard to just get organic traffic. So most likely, not many people are going to see the first piece of content you're making anyways. So
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
the a little bit of that luxury there where it's like, well,
Hmm.
I guess I'm not gonna. It's not like the whole world's staring at me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
with my
Hmm.
15 minutes of fame. If I don't do it well, it fails. Like you're gonna improve over time. It's always better to launch and get better than to never launch or delay it, and then
Yeah.
you got to ship it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's that. I think some practical stuff too is have limit your input to a certain degree, because you got to be
Hmm.
as you're making stuff, being inspired. So I think um, have an area where you can be inspired on how it visually looks, and keep
Hmm.
getting new input there. and then have
Yeah.
another input, another like faucet to turn on for what to talk about, because you're gonna feel like you're not sure what to say, and a lot of times you just, going back to the other thing, don't copy, artists don't copy, they steal. You
Hmm.
might hear like, well, the other thing that's perfectly fine. This is perfectly fine for social media. You heard something, you read something in a book, you
Hmm.
heard some other person say something, you
Yeah.
saw some whatever it is. You can make a piece of content that just says that, like,
Hmm.
oh, so so and so said da 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 da, and then you
Hmm.
give your own spin on it. I mean, there's videos out there where someone's just staring at the screen as a different video plays. So like
Yeah.
that's like the laziest form of it, where they're not even
Yeah.
doing
Yeah. Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But like being commentating on culture, commentating on what's going on,
Hmm.
that's great. I mean, that's easy. People like that, and people are going to tune into you because you look like them or you resonate with them. They're going to have a connection, and since
Hmm.
we all look and act different, everyone's unique voice is going to resonate with different people, and that's why we need more and more people doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I know I've seen some people, like you were saying, they do the same thing, but the videos are so different. Like the reaction videos, like those are such great. We want to start doing more of them because I really enjoy watching them, and watching someone like an Alex O'Connor, one of the biggest atheists in on YouTube. I actually invited him to be on the show because I actually think the way he thinks in his mind is so fascinating. Like it's so awesome. But it's cool to be able to like take something. Maybe don't start with Alex O'Connor, but starting with someone who like a Protestant person that's like saying the Catholic Church thinks this, and being able to like, oh, hit pause. It's like, so actually, and then you do your research ahead of time, and it's like the Catechism actually says, or in Romans, or Catholic Answers apologist Carlo Broussard actually says, and like being able to like correct people because there's so much misinformation out there with
Yeah,
everything, but specifically, so many people are against the Catholic Church because they understand absolutely nothing about it. They think they understand all of it, but they don't understand anything about it. And I think that's always great, great and easy place to start as well because it can be very soft and it can be very you never want to come across as attacking, but it can be a great way for you to watch the video, do your own research. So now you're growing in your faith as well. You're growing in your faith, and like, okay, yeah, no, the Catholic Church actually teaches this, and it's like, cool, make a little 3 minute video. There you go. There's your first YouTube short right there. So
yeah,
that's
and I mean that's kind of like a hack. Right? Question and answers is a bit of a hack for
yeah,
people to get, like, if they don't know what to talk about, well then just do a Q&A, and it'll
yeah,
spark stuff. And this is like, yeah, watch content, find something that you don't agree with, or maybe even you do agree with, and give your own 2 cents on it. And then you have the time to like look it up, research it, know what you're going to say,
mhm,
and that's just like it's a pretty good cheat code to
yeah,
like to make good content. Also, you could just ask ChatGPT to like, hey, give you some ideas. This I want to talk about
yeah,
XYZ. I'm into this, and it'll give you a long list of things. I mean, I've made plenty of pieces of content by asking, ChatGPT like, hey, I want to talk about XYZ on this platform. What are some ideas? And it'll just like spark some ideas, and it may not be an exact thing that it says, but it's like, oh, actually, that's a good, yeah. Let me run with something like that.
yeah,
And so you just got to start moving. You're not things aren't just
yeah,
gonna like happen by not doing anything. You got to
yeah,
start doing stuff and get a routine, get some sort of rhythm, not just how often you post, but how you do it. And so,
yeah,
once because the first time you do something, it's like, well, on my phone, and what app am I going to use, or what am I, or if it's on my computer. But if you get a
hmm,
system, once you have a system, then it's just easy to do. You know how to do it each time. You're not
yeah.
reinventing the wheel every single time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's what I finally did when I sat down. I was like, okay, I'm gonna actually do my like I didn't do any pitches for our sponsors, or I didn't do any pitches for hey, don't forget like our Patreon group. This is what and like doing more information about the Patreon group. But those will be in the video. But I've had them, so I'm able to like plug them in throughout. And I learned that from some other people who are like, you could tell like, oh, this cut away, he's not even wearing the same stuff. And then you watch another one of their videos, like, oh, it's the same thing. Like, oh, I get it. So he's saving time. Like that makes a lot of sense. Which is a great thing to think about, especially when we're thinking about not only producing the best content, putting good Catholic content out there, but saving time and being able to also focus on our faith life as well. I think it's a great practice there too. That's great. So well, awesome. Well, Rob, thanks for being on. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
I look forward to maybe having you back on sometime. I mean, we'll definitely stay in touch. I actually found you on LinkedIn. I don't know how. I don't know who shared it or whatever. Like, you may even just popped up on my people you may know or something, or people you might want to follow. But yeah, I'm super excited we got connected, and yeah, I look forward to continuing our friendship and stuff. But thanks for being on. Any plugs you want to do for your stuff, what you're working on? Anything I can
Yeah.
include in the comments or in the description?
First, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Keep
Yeah.
up the great work. Also, love cigars too. So,
Sweet.
what kind of cigars do you like?
Oh, that's a bad question because I always tell people I'm the opposite of a cigar, coffee, and beer snob. I will literally drink a Bush Light, or I'll take the nicest craft beer you have. Cigars are kind of the same way. I know Monte Cristo is never a bad
Mhm.
way to go, and it's not. I'm usually like I don't want the cheapest of the cheap, but I also don't want to spend $80 on a cigar. But Monte Cristo's I've always been a go-to, and I would have to think about that. Yeah, I don't. I'm honestly don't. I'm still relatively new to the knowledge of cigars.
Okay. Do you like? Okay, I'm gonna pick some up and send some to you. Do you like a darker
Sweet.
or a lighter, or you're like, ah, it doesn't even matter?
It doesn't matter. Now, I will say
Okay.
someone's like, "This one's spicy, you'll love it," and I tried it, and I felt like I was just like I was like, my throat's killing me. Like, what the heck? This is
No,
making
no.
this the worst. And
Spicing
I was like,
cigars.
that's the word I usually when I'm asking a cigar shop. Like, what do you guys have? Like, this one right here is so and so, and this one's spicy. I'm like, not that one, but anything else. But yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Like, I'm down for whatever you want to send.
Sweet. Well, I think we have a similar taste. Something smooth
Yeah,
and mild, and yeah, good. Okay.
yeah,
Um, and then to your other thing, plug. The thing I'm probably the most excited right now about is our YouTube channel called Spirit Juice Kids or Juice Box.
yeah.
We surpassed 1 million subscribers just recently. It's the
Nice,
largest Catholic YouTube channel, Catholic kids YouTube channel rather, and we put out content every Friday.
nice.
And we just launched a bedtime stories that goes along with it. But if you have kids like the ages like 3 to 7, once you
Hmm.
like first communion and under, it's a great way to share the faith with them. And so I'm
Yeah,
really excited about Juicebox. And if you're a
nice.
parent or grandparent that has
Yeah,
young kids, it's
yeah.
definitely one to check out.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. You guys check it out. Like I said, links in the description below. I'll make sure I get all these from you. And yeah, thanks again for being on. And I look forward to doing, maybe we'll do a cigar review episode for the fans out here. But yeah, thanks again for having us on. You guys, make sure you guys go check out the Juice Box. Don't forget about Father Flanagan, the documentary coming out as well as just go check out the Spirit Juice Studios YouTube channel. I was literally on there yesterday, just scrolling through and watching all the videos. I've got some great ones on some like Eucharistic events that have happened. There's the Bishop Barron stuff. There's a lot of great stuff on there. So we're praying for you, Rob, and everything you guys are doing over there. And everyone else, don't forget to subscribe and help us hit 2,500. And we will see you guys next time. See ya.